The UU Principles read from 7 to 1. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and in society at large. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. And from Sweetgrass and Cottonwood Smoke by Canadian UU Mary Scriver, from a sermon titled Sustainable Culture. A culture is not monolithic. Scientists are concerned now by agribusiness growing monocrops, thousands of acres based on the same germplasm. But at the same time, I see in slick international magazines articles on the importance of saving seeds in all their historical variety. I see clearly photographs of sheds and back porches lined with shelves of old mayonnaise and peanut butter jars full of seeds to be replanted, multiplied, shared, and sold across the country. Even the city folks are beginning to realize that ancient blue Peruvian potatoes have a wonderful flavor. At the same time that some people measure their family's well-being in terms of how many big, technical, energy-consuming pieces of electronically enhanced machinery they own, other people are taking pride in how simply they are living and how deeply they are able to enjoy quiet skill building. What is the difference between people who are blind slaves to the media and those who are able to judge and choose for themselves? What is the difference between those who read about threats to the world and despair and those who read about the same threats and quietly begin to work for change? Some of it is being intelligent, confident, lucky in the contacts one has made or the education one has acquired. But even more than that, the difference is in the capacity to dream, to form a vision, to believe in something that doesn't exist yet. It is the capacity to create culture, a new way of being in the world that is sustainable and shareable.
I've been pouring my slops down your chimney. The amazed recognition in Darlin's voice makes this sentence, I think, my favorite in the entire story. I've been pouring my slops down your chimney. In life, as in the story this morning, it's rarely enough for us to hear from someone else that our comfort is leading to their discomfort. No matter how many times they tell us, we often have to see for ourselves the consequences of our choices and our actions. And when we do, we often find ourselves asking, wait a minute, why is it we've been pouring our slops down one another's chimneys in the first place? The old couple in the story don't set out to inconvenience anyone. They're just minding their own business and taking care of their lives with the minimum amount of effort and fuss. Now, they are, in fact, completely unaware of their neighbors. These aren't neighbors like us, of course. The neighbors in the story are wee folk whose households and economies are invisible to the old couple, even when they're told where they ought to look. Without special assistance, Darlin can't see the little person's village or the mess his slops have made. In a similar way, it's been common practice in our Western culture for us not to see the homes or lifeways of the poor, of people of color, of First Nations people, of native plant and animal ecologies. This frees us to blithely dump our slops over the wall and into the weeds, because, of course, there's nothing there. As a culture, our focus for several centuries now has been on ourselves and on our convenience, and we've demonstrated an amazing inability to even see certain others who share this continent with us. Why? How many of you went to hear and see Bill McKibben this past week when he was here? A number. Yes, Nathaniel and I were there. Well, in the opening pages of one of McKibben's earlier books, Deep Economy, McKibben writes, "For most of human history, the two birds, more and better, roosted on the same branch. You could toss one stone and hope to hit them both. More food, more shelter, more stuff, and more mobilities, these without doubt made life better for millions of people. And since more is much easier to quantify than better, and since more initially leads to better, as in better health and better standard of living, governments and cultures started to focus on the more part of the equation. And since more is something that can be measured by individuals, and in the lives of individuals and households, that's how it's been done mostly ever since. Now, unfortunately, one of the side effects of a focus on more is that more for some often means less for others. So, if the others are invisible, well, that's fewer folks that we have to share with, right? But McKibben tells us, better no longer roosts on the same branch as more. All over the world, it seems that at the point where one has about $10,000 a year to spend on basic needs, that's right, just $10,000, at that point, better moves her nest to another tree. It isn't news that after basic needs are met, food and clothing, housing, education, and health care, happiness turns out to be correlated to intangibles, not to money and not to stuff. After basic needs are met, our lives become appreciably better, not when we have more stuff, but when we have deeper connections, stronger relationships, a more vibrant commons, a cleaner environment, more meaning. Turns out that our individualistic pursuit of more money, more stuff, more convenience, ends up consuming rather a lot of time and energy that could have been put into better. And it ends up creating a lot of slops and the need to find places to put them in the process. Now, I know all of you have heard of peak oil, that time when our fossil fuel consumption will peak and the oil reserves of our planet, the fossilized sunlight of millions of years, will be half depleted. Well, I'm waiting for a different peak. I am waiting for the moment of peak stuff, the moment when our throwaway material culture begins to reverse itself, the moment we cease to see those slops as waste to be dumped over the wall and start to see them as resources to be composted in the garden and fed to the chickens. And you know, we might have seen that here this morning with the youth in the youth conference and the kids who were listening to the story. I look forward to the time when we'll stop buying things to use once and throw away, and instead start investing our time, creativity, and energy in creating durable objects, healthy ecologies, and stronger, more resilient relationships and communities. What we need is a perceptual shift, a shift in how we see the world, a shift that will in turn help us reorganize our actions. Now, I was an art teacher many, many, many years ago. And one of the things I used to teach the kids I taught was that when an artist wants to critique a composition that is too familiar, he or she will often either look at that piece in a mirror or turn it upside down. Shifting our focus from a world where more is the goal to a world where better is the goal is one way of changing our vision, changing our lens. Reading our Unitarian Universalist principles from number 7 to number 1 is another way. When you looked at the principles on your order of service, how many of you realized that we had printed them in reverse order this morning? Every time I've done this, some people realize and some people don't. But typically, we start with the inherent worth and dignity of every person and read through the principles, ending with affirming the interdependent web of which we are all a part. What happens when we turn them upside down and start with the web and end with the individual? Well, on one hand, nothing changes at all. They're all still the same principles and the same words. But something I think is very different when we choose to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part as the first thing on our list, and leave celebrating the inherent worth and dignity of every person with its implied parenthetical conclusion, especially me, until the end. Now, I'm intrigued by the reversal because I think that we get stuck in our first principle rather often. In our voluntary associations, we come and go according to whether we feel that our inherent worth and dignity or our perspective and opinion has been accorded its full due. But friends, just as the life you are living here and now is your best or only chance for spiritual practice and self-realization, here in Santa Fe, the Unitarian Universalist congregation gathered in this room is the closest community you have to hand in which to explore your UU values and UU principles and to practice living from them. This is it. And I suspect, although I haven't a smattering of proof, I suspect that if we were to start reading and then living our principles, beginning with the communal disciplines and ending with the more personal ones, we would find ourselves in the midst of an amazing transformation. I suspect that by focusing at least as much as on the intangibles that come from respecting the interdependent web of existence as we do on the inherent worth and dignity of me, we will shift our emphasis from more to better. Not more money and more people and more programming, but better communication, deeper ritual, stronger connection, and a greater positive impact on the world beyond our walls. I suspect we will find ourselves focused on satisfying our communally held needs for meaning and culture and relationship. We don't want to set the sermon on fire. That's the kind of global warming we don't need. when we turn the principles upside down. We are called back to that old slogan, think globally, act locally. We are reminded that before we assume that we get all the goodies, before we dump our slops, we need to check and see who lives on the other side of the wall. Human beings are relational creatures. Like it or not, we're always embedded in community. And that's good, because it means that tending our community supports our well-being in turn. Creating stronger relationships and a vibrant commons gives all of us and each of us a better quality of life. Tend to the better in the community, tend to the commons, and we arrive at a better for each individual. Now, we need to recall that our Unitarian Universalist values were initially articulated in the midst of the Enlightenment at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Even the wealthiest of our Unitarian and Universalist forebears were materially quite poor. To walk through Thoreau's cottage or Emerson's home or the Alcott House when you visit New England is to be reminded that although they were intellectually and spiritually and relationally wealthy, our forebears were materially poor in comparison to us. In that time, our Unitarian ancestors took their highly interconnected, carefully choreographed community context completely for granted, and their emphasis on the worth and dignity of the individual was an important Enlightenment corrective to both the privileging of some classes of human beings over others and the rising impulse to devalue people as cogs in a new economic machine. What they took for granted in the interdependent web of relationships that they had with each other and the places they lived, we have almost lost. We have almost lost in our intense pursuits of individual good. So in our time, we need a different corrective. I'm persuaded that much of the harm that we do to ourselves and others in our environment falls under the category of unintended side effects, slops dumped over the wall. Our forebears never dreamed that honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person would result in the hyper-individualism and disconnection of our current culture. It never occurred to them that human agency could create global warming or decimate local food sheds or destroy the relational fabric of our communities. It never occurred to them that we would forfeit the goods that they took for granted in pursuit of more stuff, more choices, more convenience. My hypothesis this morning is that if we Unitarian Universalists reverse the order of our principles, we will shift our goals and our focus from more for me to better for all of us. And both the intended results of our actions and the unintended side effects will be healthier for all concerned. What would that look like? What would it look like to live our Unitarian Universalist values starting with the interdependent web rather than the individual? I think it might look like choosing to inconvenience ourselves just a little bit for the good of the larger community. In my Mother's Day sermon a couple of years ago, I suggested that the willingness to be inconvenienced might actually be one of the clearest indicators of familial love. Well, this morning, I want to suggest that a willingness to be inconvenienced in support of our values is a mark of how central those values are in our lives. To live from respect for the interdependent web looks like accepting the inconvenience of cutting a door in the back of your house so you don't dump your slops down your neighbor's chimney. It looks like taking extra time to bike or set up a carpool to get to work or to worship. It looks like taking on the extra work of growing a garden and canning produce, or searching out a CSA, community-supported agriculture, or schlepping to the farmer's market. It looks like making a salad or a casserole and coming to a potluck here at church instead of eating fast food by yourself. It looks like turning off the TV and going out into the weather to sing in the choir or converse with your friends. It looks like walking in the woods or by the river and accepting the inconvenience of picking up the trash that you find there and being rewarded by seeing a coyote or an eagle. It looks like helping the elderly stay in their homes or getting to know your neighbors and taking in the mail when they're away. It looks like voting and marching and benefit concerts. It looks like staying up late to be here with the youth in the middle of the night. Your inherent worth and dignity are still important. They don't go away. You're not being asked to give up imported coffee or chocolate. You don't have to silence your needs or stifle your feelings or become a doormat for other people to walk on. But you do need to be willing to flex and go out of your way to act for the good of the group, trusting that acting for the good of your neighbor will benefit you by and by. As Bill McKibben writes, we need to reorient our personal compass a little bit, shed a certain amount of our hyper-individualism and replace it with a certain amount of neighborliness. We need to think of ourselves as members of a community, and we'll get a better deal. We'll help build a world with some hope of ecological stability, where the chances increase that we and our children will be happy. Human happiness isn't about more for me. It's about better for all of us. And it springs from that tiny golden coin of neighborliness that rolls beneath the door that opens to an interdependent web of existence. To get there, we're going to need to turn the entire culture upside down. But what better place to begin than to start at home by reorienting our own principles and starting to live in a new way. Blessed be.